My 23-year-old said this has been one of her favorite years because it's the year that her mom finally learned to take care of herself. I want my kids to see me active. I want my kids to see me prioritizing my health. For 2 decades, I've kind of put myself on the back burner for everybody else's needs. And it really took Todd prioritizing me this year and pouring his time and effort into me to show me that I needed to prioritize myself. And I really need to model that for my kids.
Welcome to Rehabilitationships, a new podcast from Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation, bringing you real stories of recovery from real patients and real clinicians.
Welcome back to Rehabilitationships, a podcast highlighting the intersection of rehabilitation and relationships. I'm Chris Mills, and I'm your host. For today's episode, we are sharing the second part of our conversation with Liz Fanco and Todd Buckingham. If you haven't checked out that first episode, hit pause and jump back in your feed to give it a listen. We're going to pick up where that story left off. To recap, Liz Fanco is a mother of 8 kids who had been overweight her whole life. She was inspired to start running when 2 of her kids asked her to join them in a half marathon. The motivation for this was the race was raising funds for World Vision to help solve the global water crisis. In our previous episode, Liz shared how she ran for years with no progress until she met Todd Buckingham, Ph.D. exercise physiologist at Mary Free Bed's Sports Performance Lab. Liz started using the AlterG treadmill, a high-tech device that allows Liz to lower her body weight when running. During this process, Todd discovered that Liz had been running wrong for years. So if you've missed that first episode, go back and give it a listen. But for now, let's continue the conversation as Todd shares about Liz's workouts and additional services she received at Mary Free Bed.
Everybody is looking to improve themselves, whether it's with the elite athlete, it's the last 1%, or if it's somebody like Liz who just wants to enjoy running. I mean, I think I treat most of my athletes the same. I don't give them the same workouts, but I try to meet them where they're at and talk about their goals and what struggles they've had to overcome and figure out how best to plan and get them to where they want to be. Yeah, whether it's somebody who is trying to qualify or make the Olympic team or somebody who's just trying to run a mile for the first time on their own, it's still kind of the same process, just different details.
Liz, was there ever a moment when you woke up one day and realized that things were really changing?
Yeah, there was. It wasn't a woke up one day thing. It was before and after I run on the AlterG. I do warm-up laps on the track at the Y. And there was one day that we were doing cool-down laps afterwards, and I had to hold my pants because they were falling off. And I didn't realize how much weight I had lost. And those were pants that I had bought like a month prior. And all of a sudden they were falling off to the point that I had to hold them while I was running. And I was mad at the time that Todd wouldn't let me stop laps early. He's like, just hold the pants. You have laps to finish. And I was so irritated with him that I had to finish the laps while holding my pants up. But I think that's when I realized, like, stuff is changing quickly. It went from slow progress, feeling like nothing was happening, to all of a sudden, like, pants I bought a month ago don't even fit me anymore. Like, all of a sudden things are rapidly changing, and seeing my mile times drop significantly, seeing my 5K times drop significantly, going from that literally feeling like death in a 41-minute 5K to, running a 5K a few months later and cutting off another 3 or 4 minutes, and then running a 5K again in a few months, or like a month after that, and cutting off another few minutes, and seeing those times drop. And I remember Todd telling me, like, once you get to the point that you can run a mile, it's not going to take you, if it takes you 4 months before you can run a mile without stopping, it's not going to take you another 4 months before you can run 2, and 4 months before you can run 3. Like, those are going to come in rapid succession. And I didn't believe him. And I remember rolling my eyes when he said that. And he said, "Don't roll your eyes at me," I'm in a very parental voice. And I didn't believe him, but it's true. And I remember it was literally a week between when I could run 4 miles without stopping and when I could run 6 miles without stopping. That feeling of finishing 6 miles and like, holy cow, I just ran 6 miles without having to stop for a walk break. And a few months ago, I couldn't run 2 miles without having to stop for a walk break. And 6 months ago, I couldn't run a mile without having to stop for a walk break. And just seeing like milestone after milestone just happening in rapid succession.
So, Todd, what was her workout plan that you guys did? She was coming in several times a week. You had her doing homework at home, but she also used other services here within the Performance Lab. And you even referred her to see a nutritionist, a dietitian, nutritionist. Tell me, what were some of the other things that Liz was using?
Like you mentioned, I suggested she reach out to a dietitian, a registered dietitian, because while I know a lot of stuff about nutrition and diet, I'm not a registered dietitian, so the advice that I give is only worth so much. So I actually referred her to the nutrition department here at Mary Free Bed. We also got Liz on the DEXA scanner. So as I mentioned earlier, that allows us to look at body composition, so muscle mass, body fat, bone density. And I really wish we would have done it when she first started in January, because I think the first scan was in June.
It was.
And then the second scan we did was in September. And by June, she was already down to, under 250 probably?
Yeah, it was, I think, 247.
Yeah. And then by September, you were down, were you below 200 at that point?
Right around 200,
Yeah.
I think.
So, had we started when she was 300 pounds, I just think the change would have been, obviously it would have been even more, but it would have been really cool to see. The really cool thing about Liz and the weight loss that she had from June to September, and like shocking to me, was that everything she lost was almost purely body fat. She lost almost no muscle mass, which doesn't happen when you're losing as much weight as Liz did. That's just a credit to the diet plan that figured out how to work her nutrition so that she wasn't losing muscle as well. And I know we're always talking about like, oh, what a big role that I've played in Liz's journey, but I don't think it's a very big role at all. It's I am part of the team, and the team has helped Liz get to where she's at. And more than anything, it's Liz who has helped Liz get to where she's at, because she only comes to see me like, yeah, if it's 3 times a week for 30 minutes, that's an hour and a half a week. But there are a couple hundred hours in a week that she's not here, and she has to hold herself accountable. And, it's just a big credit to what she's done.
Liz, what was it like to see the scan? The scan shows the body fat and the muscle, to see the scientific scan of your body, to see that change over those months.
I was so excited to see the 2 pictures side by side. It shows kind of in red the high percentage body fat areas, and yellow kind of medium, and green low body fat percentage. And I was so excited to put those 2 pictures side by side and see the change in my body. I take measurements every month, hips, waist, neck, all those. So I knew that areas were changing, but to actually see what was actually changing, and to see the actual numbers of lean muscle mass increasing in areas and body fat percentage decreasing. And another thing I like about the scan is that it breaks down the 2 different types of fat. It breaks, and I'm not going to remember, one is adipose fat, adipose tissue, and...
Well, visceral and subcutaneous.
Visceral and subcutaneous, tissue. Thank you. So one is the more dangerous, that's around your organs, and the other is the one...
Yeah, that's visceral. Visceral around your organs.
And the other is just the fat that's just under the skin, the squishy fat.
The Pillsbury Doughboy,
yeah.
That we like to call it.
To me, the most important thing was getting rid of that fat that was around my organs. Diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, those are all things that run in my family. Those are all very real health issues that were kind of looming over me like a shadow, especially when I weighed 300 pounds. I want to be around for my kids. I want to be around for my grandkids. And I want to be healthy. And so to be able to see those numbers decreasing, not just, hey, I can run a mile now, but to see actual proof in front of me from that scan of those numbers, the fat around my organs is decreasing. That was really cool for me and an affirmation that I was on the right track.
And what was some of the input or teaching that our registered dietitian shared with you? You tried so many diets in the past and nothing was working. What was something that she told you that was maybe a little different from what you've been told before?
Well, I think that, and I don't want to badmouth any doctor specifically, but I think the lazy response at this point has become from doctors, if a patient is overweight, you need to eat less and exercise more. That's kind of the canned lazy response, and that's what I've gotten from so many doctors over the years. And so that's what I would do. Eat less, exercise more. To an extreme. There was one time a doctor told me, well, you're obviously overeating, so just wait and don't eat until you're hungry. And I went 2 days without eating and never once felt my stomach growl before calling the office and saying, can I eat now? Like, it's been 48 hours and I still don't feel hungry. And I remember telling Jessie that, and she's like, your body is in starvation mode. You are eating so little and working out so much that your body is just grabbing onto any calorie you eat and hanging onto it because you're not fueling properly. We talked about how much I work out every day, and she said, you're essentially over-exercising and under-eating. We figured out how many calories I needed to have in a day, and the thought of eating that much in 3 meals a day made me want to vomit. Like, I wasn't eating big meals at that point. I was eating very little. I was probably eating well under 1,000 calories a day. She said, we need to jumpstart your metabolism. And the best way to do that is, this is the number of calories I want you to eat, but I want you to set an alarm on your phone for every 2 hours. And I want you to eat 200 calories every 2 hours all throughout your day. And we talked about, what that could look like. And it might be nuts and toast. It might be salad. It might be whatever. But I want you to have at least this much protein. I want you to have at least this many calories, and focus on every 2 hours. You've got to get your metabolism going again. And she said it's going to be a little while, but eventually that feeling of your stomach growling, that feeling of hunger is going to return, and you're going to know that's your metabolism kicking in again and your body coming back out of starvation mode. And I remember when that feeling came back, it was about a week, that all of a sudden, just like clockwork, every 2 hours, it's time to eat again. Feeling excited, like my body's waking back up because it knows that I'm actually going to feed it. Once my metabolism woke back up, I started to lose weight. And it seems so counterintuitive that eating more causes you to lose weight. When I was restricting calories, I kept eating less and less and less, thinking surely if I eat few enough calories, the weight will start to come off, when what I had to do was start eating more.
So you start losing more and more weight. You've been running more races. You're still raising money for Team World Vision. And you said you make big, lofty goals. What was one of the biggest goals that you set for yourself?
My big goal was to run the New York City Marathon. I had signed up to run that with Team World Vision after swearing I would never, ever run a full marathon because 13 miles is hard enough. 26 miles is ridiculous. But I set the goal of running the New York City Marathon. And the first person I told about that was my dad, figuring that he would talk me out of it.
Because at this point, where was this commitment? Was this before you met Todd?
This was before I'd really started working with Todd. It was early 2020, before COVID.
And so you still weighed 200 plus 300 pounds.
Yeah, 300 pounds. And I was thinking I was going to have to walk the New York City Marathon, but I was going to commit to doing it. And so I told my dad I thought he was going to talk me out of it. And first thing he said, I can't wait to see you cross that finish line. And then COVID happened, and everything got deferred to the next year. So the New York City Marathon didn't happen in 2020. It got moved to 2021, and my dad passed away in May of 2021. So my dad didn't get to see me cross that finish line. My dad didn't get to see a lot of this journey. He got to see the first few months of it. He got to see me get excited about running. He got to see he got to see me post smiling pictures from races those first few months. But he didn't get to see me cross that finish line in New York. So one of the things I did when I ran the New York City Marathon was I actually bought printable tattoo paper off Amazon. And before I went to New York, I printed out little, I took a picture of my dad and a picture of my husband, Jeff, and a picture of Todd. I made little 2-inch square printable tattoos and brought them with me to New York. And I put them on the inside of my arm. My dad, because he couldn't wait to see me cross the finish line. And my husband, because he didn't marry a runner. And there's a lot of sacrifice involved, especially when you have a farm and 8 kids. There's a lot of time sacrifice involved with all my training and a lot of juggling of schedules. And so it was a big time commitment for him, for me to do this. And Todd, because he was the reason that I was able to get to that finish line in the first place. And so I carried all 3 of them with me through the whole race. It was a difficult race for me, more difficult than I had anticipated it being. But all throughout that race, as it was difficult, I looked down and I had all 3 of them with me and looked down at them as I crossed that finish line because they did that. I had all 3 of them doing that race with me.
That's Liz Fanco, sharing her story of running the New York City Marathon, here on Rehabilitationships, a podcast from Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation. I'm your host, Chris Mills. Let's get back to our conversation with Liz and Todd as they share more about the journey. For some people, crossing that finish line would mean the reaching of a goal, the end of all this hard work. But it's not that for you.
Nope, it just means kind of the culmination of 2021. Like I said, I never do anything small. So even before I had crossed the finish line of New York, I had to make a decision on what was next. So 2 weeks before I ran New York, I signed up to run Chicago in 2022. So I will be running the Chicago Marathon this year with Team World Vision. I've committed to, I think, 5 half marathons this year. More than that, in 2021, I did my first triathlon after swearing up, down, and sideways that I would never, ever, ever do a multi-sport event because sucking at one sport is enough. So why be bad at 3? I actually decided I picked a weekend that Todd was away because I didn't want any witnesses to it. And signed up for a gravel triathlon because I knew my times would be abysmal on gravel, so that if I ever decided to do another one, it would be a PR no matter what. And did my first triathlon in 2021, and my times were abysmal. I think literally 3 times as slow. Todd can do a triathlon in 1/3 the amount of time that it took me to do a sprint length tri. But to me, it was the first hint of what I was capable of in multi-sport. So I have been triathlon training, and I have been swimming every morning, and I have been bike riding, and I am taking on triathlon kind of as my big goal for 2022.
Todd, what is it like for you to have been working with someone who was a client and is now a friend who was running wrong, could not run a mile, but now crossed the finish line of the New York City Marathon and is now a triathlete? How does that make you feel?
It's pretty cool. I think the thing that a lot of people don't understand about Liz's journey is they haven't seen everything that I've seen. They see little bits and pieces, but it's, they saw Liz as 300-pound Liz and Liz now as 180-pound Liz. I've kind of seen all of it, and so I know the struggles that she's had to overcome, not just with running, but with life. And yeah, when her dad died, that was a really hard time for her, and training, was rough, and can't imagine something like that and how that would affect me. And so seeing everything behind the scenes and understanding like where she actually came from, where she started, everything she's had to overcome, I think it gives me a deeper appreciation for what she's actually been able to accomplish. I don't think many people know everything that she's gone through and that she still goes through on a daily basis. I mean, she's got 8 kids and she's got a farm that she has to take care of, and she still finds time to fit in training and time with her family. And so it's really just a testament to her as a person and not even as a runner.
Liz, so you started this challenge for yourself because of your kids. And some people think that running triathlons, that's taking you away from your family. But this running has brought you closer to your kids. Tell me what it's been like running with your kids.
I have been able to have so much time training with my kids, but also in multi-sport, they've picked up on that as well. I am swimming 2 mornings a week with my teenage girls. My son, Teddy, did his first triathlon this past year, and he got earned a spot at Nationals, so he's training to compete in Milwaukee. Every morning he texts me a picture of, this morning, 6 a.m., got a picture of Teddy from the pool, even though he's away at college. So I, have that connection with him. My daughter, Juliet, who's 8 years old, has this goal that she wants to be able to swim a mile continuously before she turns 9 in a few weeks. And so 3 mornings this week, she got up at 5 a.m. and she came to swim laps with me because she is working so hard. She's up to 3/4 of a mile. The one-on-one time that I've had with each of my kids, my son, Timmy, asked me to pace him in his 3rd half marathon this past October because he wanted to break 3-hour half marathon, which he had never broken before. And he asked me to pace him. And that was huge for me because I was always so much slower than him. And this past year, I was able to pace him in a half marathon. That time where my kids used to essentially take off and leave me in the dust. And now I can train with them. I can say, hey, I'm going for a run. Who wants to come with me? Or I'm going for a bike ride, or I'm going for a swim, or I'm going to the gym. Who wants to come with me? And that time with my kids, either in small groups or one-on-one time, is so precious to me, especially with my teenagers who only have a few years left at home, or even my teenager who's already out of the house, or my 23-year-old who's training to do a triathlon this summer and come home and do that with me. It's something I never thought I'd be able to bond with my kids over, physical activity. It's so cool. I love that so much. It's opened a whole new world for me of something that I can do with my kids.
What has been some of the feedback you've received from the kids? Have they shared anything with you about this change they've seen in you?
My 23-year-old said a couple months ago that this has been one of her favorite years because it's the year that her mom finally learned to take care of herself. And that really stuck out to me. I'm sorry it took 23 years of her life for her to see that. But I think it's important for my kids to see. I think it's important to model that for my kids. I want my kids to see me active. I want my kids to see me prioritizing my health. I want my kids to see me prioritizing myself. For 2 decades, I've kind of put myself on the back burner for everybody else's needs, kind of to make everybody else happy and make sure everyone else is taken care of. And I never took care of myself. And it really took Todd prioritizing me this year and pouring his time and effort into me to show me that I needed to prioritize myself. And I really need to model that for my kids. When my girls are older, I don't want them to wait until they're 40 years old to learn to prioritize themselves. I really hope that they already know that that's important when they reach adulthood and don't have to wait 2 decades to learn that skill.
Liz, can you recap the weight you lost and how long it was? At this point, I was here, and now today I am here.
So in January of 2021, when I started working with Todd, we didn't start weighing me until probably March. We estimate I was right around 300 pounds in January 2021. I was between a size 22 and a size 24. It was in October, early October, when I hit 184. So about 115 pounds weight loss, and I'm around 180, 181, depending on the day now. So, and a size 8 right now. So however many months that is, from a size 22, 24 to a size 8.
It seems almost poetic that you randomly picked 180 pounds to adjust yourself for that AlterG treadmill way back when, and now you're there.
There's a whole lot of things about this story that seem randomly poetic. I prefer to say it's a God thing.
So what's next for Liz? What's next for you?
A whole lot of running, a whole lot of training. I'm mentoring several friends who are doing their first triathlon this year. I try to pour into as many people as I can the way that Todd has poured into me. I have a group of people who have made it their challenge this year to run a mile for the first time. That I'm encouraging on a weekly basis, who've never been able to run a mile in their life. So just encouraging people who are working up towards that or running their, first 5K. I want to encourage other people to not wait until a magic date, not wait until January 1st, not wait until next month or next week or next year or whatever, but to make a decision to prioritize their health or to try something new today. Like, go walk a lap around the track today. Go for a jog today. Go make a healthy decision in your eating today. I want to be able to pour into other people the way that Todd has poured into me.
So you've been able to share your story, several times now. Local media talked to you. You did an interview with the Today Show. There's a couple other things in the works. We're doing this podcast. What would be your word of advice to somebody who might be in your shoes like you were a year ago or 2 years ago?
Well, start now, first of all. Start today. Don't wait for that magic date. You may not have access to Todd, but everybody has somebody in their life who knows more than they do on that road that they want to go down. If it's running, if it's cycling, if it's eating healthier, whatever it is, you have someone in your life who's more knowledgeable than you are. Find that person and ask for help. It's sometimes the hardest thing is being able to admit I'm stuck and I need help getting unstuck. And for me, the best thing that I did was come and sit across this desk from Todd and say, I'm stuck. And I'm so sick of being stuck and I need your help getting unstuck. So don't wait until next month. Don't wait until next year. Find the person who has the knowledge to help you get unstuck and say, help me get unstuck. Ask for help and make that decision. But it takes the courage to ask. And that would really be my advice, is find a person and ask, because you get to a point that you spin your wheels. You try something for so long and you're not making progress and you are just spinning your wheels and it gets so frustrating and gets so demoralizing. Find someone to help you get unstuck. And for me, that was Todd.
That was amazing, Liz. Thank you for sharing that. Todd, is there anything from your perspective, advice to someone in Liz's shoes that you would say to them?
I think the biggest thing is being consistent. It's easy to be great once in a while, but it's a lot harder to be good every day. And you don't have to start by running 10 miles once a week. You can run half a mile 7 times a week. I would much rather have somebody do something every day or close to every day than once a week. It's all about consistency. Consistency is key. And the more that you can do something, the more it's going to become a habit for you. And then it's going to feel weird if you don't go for a run. And I think that's one of the funny things about Liz. We were actually just talking about it this morning on her run. Is like, what is one thing you would take on vacation with you, or what would you do on your perfect day off? And a year ago, she would not have said, well, I have to take my running shoes. And now it's like, that's the first thing that's going in the bag. The more that you can be consistent and the more that you can do something, the sooner it's going to become a habit, and it's ends up being a lifestyle change. And it's hard, like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock or whatever time and pulling yourself out of bed that's nice and warm to go for a run or a swim in the cold Michigan winter is not an easy thing to do. And nobody said it was easy, but that's what it takes to make a change. And if you can commit to that, then we've seen what Liz could do. So if she can do it, anybody can do it.
And I don't take that as an insult, because that's what I tell everyone when I recruit for World Vision every year. Like, literally, if I can do a half marathon at 300 pounds, anybody can do it. And you may not lose 115 pounds like I did, but you'll make some progress. If you have somebody with the expertise to show you what you need to fix, you will make progress.
And I think even if you hadn't lost the weight, I think that the benefits that you're getting from running and just enjoying it more and being happier, and you don't have to lose weight to be a better version of yourself.
Right.
You know? So I think that's what a lot of people focus on is, oh, she lost 115 pounds, so that's great. She's just amazing person. Well, but I think even if she hadn't lost 115 pounds, let's say she only lost 10 pounds, like the way that she feels about herself and the confidence that she has now is completely different than when she first came into the lab. So don't focus on the weight, because that's the wrong thing to be focused on.
Thank you to Liz Fanco and Todd Buckingham for joining us on this episode of Rehabilitationships. We just finished the second part of 2 stories, so if you missed the first one, go back and give it a listen. If you want to learn more about Liz's story, we have links to her interview on the Today Show and more in the show notes. Check it out. Thanks again for listening to Rehabilitationships, a podcast from Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation. Every month, we'll share amazing stories just like this, highlighting the intersection of rehabilitation and relationships. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear your feedback as we launch this new podcast. Email us at podcast@maryfreebed.com. If you, a family member, or friend could benefit from services like Liz received, you can learn more about the Sports Performance Lab at maryfreebed.com. Once again, I'm Chris Mills, your host, and until next time, thanks for listening and stay well.